All right, so let's go ahead and click past this. And now we launch right into Voyager. And the first thing that we see is what we call the Voyager Task Manager. You can see at the top of this window how it says Voyager Tasks, and it says, what would you like to do today? And down the left-hand side of this box, we have the ability to either check the weather with the Smart Weather module. We can jump right into flight planning with the Smart Plan module. We can get into glass view if we want to and just fly in the cockpit. You don't have to check the weather or have created a flight plan to use glass view. You can just jump right in the cockpit. Your GPS will show your plane right on your plate, and then you've just got a moving map. You can also create what we call a plate pack using smart plates. Or, of course, you can view any of the charts of any types that you want. Wax, tax, sectionals, high and low, and routes, everything I just mentioned. So these are kind of the ways that you get into and use the different parts of Voyager. And as you select something on the left, you'll get different options appropriate to that for the thing you clicked on the left. So the first thing we're going to do is go take a look at the weather module. So I click on Check the Weather. Here on the right-hand side, we see that we have 3 different things to choose from. And I'm going to choose the second one. So I just click on the second radial box there, open a chart centered around my home airport of Payne Field, where Seattle Avionics keeps our little Piper Archer. Now you could also open a chart over the whole country. You can do all sorts of other stuff, but I'm just going to open one around where we are right now. So I click OK. It launches the 3-dimensional charting engine. And we get a little, I don't know if you saw the little flash on the screen there of the globe, but Voyager actually has a 3D charting engine built in where we've got the whole globe here. And as you can see, I can go ahead and move it around. It's pretty cool, kind of like Google Earth. And as I'm doing this, you might be noticing that things are being drawn onto my map. I'm getting weather depiction circles, which is all the green, yellow, and red dots. And I'm going to go ahead and jump down to Payne Field. I started playing with it before it did what it was doing, which was heading towards drawing the map around my home airport. So here on the screen, I'll go ahead and zoom in. You can zoom in Voyager multiple ways. There's a range box up at the top, and so if you click on range, you click what nautical mile range you'd like to look at. 25 nautical mile range is pretty typical for what a sectional is drawn at. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little. I'm just scrolling my mouse wheel, and that actually is changing my zoom range. So here in the Pacific Northwest, let's go down and take a look at down by Portland. You see the green, yellow, and red dots. Those are weather depiction circles that show the current weather conditions at airports around the area. Now I can see some are green. And if I don't remember what these things mean in the weather module called Smart Weather, you can go ahead and click here on the Show Your Chart legend in the upper left-hand corner, and it tells you what these things are. So in the middle of the box, you see under the chart legend, green for VFR, yellow for marginal, and red for IFR. You can also see radar, and I'll go grab that, grab the little spotlight again. We can see over here in the area, over in the corner of the southeast corner of Washington, where Washington, Oregon, and Idaho come together. We can see that there's some stormy weather there. We can see the gray cloud layers. We can see the green intensity of the NEXRAD radar. And if we look over here on our legend, we see light rain, medium rain, and this is the intensity of the precipitation as it's falling to the ground, actually hitting the ground. Not just virga, but stuff that's substantial enough to be falling out of the clouds all the way to the ground, and the intensity of that. And we also have some wind arrows we can see here. The one around Seattle that I'm circling with the red spotlight right now says 19 knots, and it's a green arrow. Let me go ahead and zoom in. I'll close the chart legend here, and I'll zoom in a little bit on that. Give me just a second. Close the chart legend, and I'll go ahead and zoom down in, and I'm going to pull up to Seattle. You see that green arrow is telling us our winds aloft. And I'll focus more on that in just a minute. But that green arrow is telling us 19 knots blowing out of the west to the east today. If I scroll down to Portland, I can see that it's 24 knots, and it's actually a yellow arrow. Now if I click back on that legend, it shows me down at the bottom, winds aloft, anything 20 knots or less is green. Wind arrows turn yellow to get more of your attention. If they're more significant, you could possibly have a crosswind that could affect a takeoff or landing. And then they turn red if there's any winds over 60 knots. So you can see here on this screen the 20 knots over by Astoria and 24, which is turned yellow there by Portland. Okay, so now let's say that we look at one of these colored dots, the weather depiction circles, and we want more information. Like I see down by Salem here in the center of my screen, I have a red dot. Well, we know that is telling us that it's VFR conditions, but if I want more, you just tap on it, and it pulls up the airport that we've selected. This happens to be McNary Field in Salem, and we see in the weather dialog box here that it currently is IFR conditions. So you see the red banner across the top where it says METAR, current conditions are IFR, and of course we translate that for you to regular English. Now you can click on the raw coded text button if you'd like to read it in military or coded time, but most of us I think prefer translated. Now we can see not only the METAR here at the top, but when we go down to the forecast, the TAF area, we see that it's changing. Going to be that red ball will be changing to yellow next hour as the weather conditions change from IFR to VFR. So that's handy. Of course, I can scroll down and read, on into the future if we want to. But we call smart weather smart for a reason, and I'll show you that in just a moment. You don't have to scroll down. We can actually use the time and altitude sliders. Our winds aloft here, of course, as well. If you want even more weather than this, you can go ahead and click in the upper right-hand corner of this box and go to Show Weather Graphics, or go to the Weather drop-down and just click on Show Weather Graphics. If I do that, it pulls up over 800 weather graphics for both the 50 United States and Canada, and you can jump right to things like your surface analysis chart, or you can jump to a 24-hour prog chart, or you can go to local radar. Well, we're having a problem for some reason on this one. Interesting. Anyway, you can still play with this. You can go ahead and go into US or Canada and download anything. Here's a radar chart for across all of Canada with all of their local radars depicted as rings. Anyway, so this is your graphics. If you click on the text element, then you can go ahead and get a full DUOTS weather briefing right here. And it looks like the DUOTS, we don't have it set up on this machine. So if we just put in our DUOTS once, and you can use either CSC or DTC DUOT, and of course it'll just automatically, this box will always be filled with the latest either area weather briefing or route weather briefing. So I'm going to say close and go back to where we were. And I'm going to go ahead and close down that weather box. Now I got here by just clicking or touching on any of these colored weather depiction circles. So I'm going to click on yellow again, and here I just clicked on McMinnville. Now this is marginal, the ball was yellow, but even in the TAF, that system's going to stay yellow. So if I say close, one of the things I can do is let's see how the weather will change over time. If you look across the bottom of the screen, we see what Seattle Avionics invented, and some other products, including FlightSoft, had picked up and incorporated into their products later, but we invented the time slider associated with the weather. And right now there's a little white triangle here right about noon telling us that we're looking at the current weather. But if I want to go ahead and grab this, I can drag it and say, well, what if I was going to take a flight today after work about 6 o'clock? I just grab the little white triangle at the bottom on the time slider, drag it out to 6 o'clock, drop it, and look, my weather at 6 o'clock is going to be way better. All of those yellow and red balls have gone away as the winds blowing strong off of the ocean have blown all the clouds out, and it's going to be clear by the time I want to go fly tonight in Western Oregon. So that's pretty exciting, pretty cool. Now these wind arrows, of course, we see 20 knots and 24 knots. We have an altitude slider going up the y-axis over on the left-hand side, and you can see right now that it's at 7,000 feet, our default cruise altitude. But I can say, well, I want to go up to 12,000 feet and see what the winds will be at 12,000. So at 6 p.m., our winds over Portland are predicted now in the winds aloft forecast to be 35 knots. Now I'm going to drag that back to current time. We see it adds NextRad radar, those are the green blotches, and some clouds. Now let's drag the time slider, or I'm sorry, the altitude slider down to 3,000 feet and say OK. I got there by clicking in this black bar across the top where it tells us that right now cloud tops are at 3,000 or greater than 3,000 feet. Tells you when the radar was last updated 10 minutes ago, and the winds being shown right now is at 3,000 feet. So I see it's 17 knot winds at 3,000 feet over Astoria area and 13 over Portland. I can go ahead and either slide my slider up. Go ahead and I'll click on 12,000 feet. When I do, notice how the gray cloud layers go away. That's because now the altitude slider set at 12,000 feet is showing us the winds and the clouds that we would encounter at that altitude. So there are still a few gray cloud tops around Portland that you can see, but not very many. So let's find out where the tops are today. I'm going to drag the 12,000 foot altitude slider up to 13. Well, the winds go up a little, but the gray clouds don't disappear. Let's go up to 15. Oh, hey, if I fly at 15, I'm going to be on top of all the clouds around the Portland area. If I drag it down to 14, we see that 14 is where there's a lot of tops. So if my plane could get above 14, I can be flying VFR on top of the cloud layer today. And if I can't get up that high, then I maybe have to fly IMC instead of VFR. So I'm going to switch that back down to 3,000 feet again by clicking on this black horizontal bar across the top of the window. Pulls up the altitude selector. I say OK for 3,000 feet. And here are the clouds that I'd be in around Portland at 3,000 feet. So the power of smart weather is that we take all this information, funnel it all together, put it into a very easy to use graphical interface where you can drag your time slider or your altitude slider and be able to see what your weather will be at any point in time. If you can even drag it out to tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and say, let's see what the weather will be then. Well, Eugene's going to be IMC and some marginal there at McMinnville, but otherwise it's all green VFR dots tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. if I want to go fly. So that is smart weather. We'll go ahead and jump out of this now. Anytime you're done using a part of Voyager, what we call a module, you can go ahead and click on the File drop-down menu and say Close. When you close out of the smart weather or any module, it will bring up the Voyager Task Manager automatically again. Now I'm going to hit the cancel button and make the Task Manager go away just because I want to show you how you get it back up if you ever lose it. Go to your View drop-down menu and go to Tasks. There it is. You can bring your Voyager Task Manager up manually instead of automatically. Now we're going to go ahead and plan a flight now, so let's click here on Plan a Flight. And when I touch on the left-hand column in the Task Manager, I see options on the right-hand side that I can choose. It looks like a lot of options. Don't be confused. By default, we'll automatically select the radial button here at the top that says Create a New Flight Plan using the Wizard. This is what we recommend, especially for new users to Voyager, because it'll walk you through a multi-step wizard, just ask you questions, you answer them, and then it will use the powerful web plan auto router to figure out the best route to get you there with the least fuel burn in the shortest time. I'm going to go ahead, and now that I've got the Flight Plan Wizard selected, I just hit the OK button and it takes me into that wizard. This is the new Flight Planning Wizard. It says, welcome to Flight Planning Wizard, answer a few questions, and we'll create the most ideal flight plan to get you there as quickly as possible. Now you don't have to use the wizard. You can, if we went back to that last window, there's a thing called the Quick Flight Planning Strip where you can just type in a series of idents like your takeoff airport, a nav aid you want, your landing airport, and it'll automatically do the flight plan for you and wind optimize and fuel price optimize that route. But let's walk through the wizard and show you how simple it is. Now by default, Voyager picks a flight time that's about an hour from now. But if you don't like that, you can click here on the time where it says takeoff time, and you can go ahead and say, no, I'm not leaving in an hour. I'm going to be leaving, like I said earlier, I'm going to be leaving at about 6 o'clock. So I select 6 p.m., and I can choose whether I prefer Zulu or home time, and Voyager will remember that and always speak to me in my favorite terms. So I'm going to leave it on home. That's what I like, and I say OK. By default, it says pane field is our takeoff, but of course you can swipe and you can change that to anything you want to, and you don't need to know the identifier. You could just type in the name of the city that the airport is in, the name of the airport, whatever you can remember, and Voyager will look it up for you. So I'm going to say we want to go to Reno today, Reno, Nevada, and I just type, I'm having some typing problems here, excuse me. So we jump to, I just type in Reno because I don't remember the identifier, and it'll look it up for us. Now the next box down is our suggested cruise altitude. It says 7,000 feet. You can just ignore that if you go with the defaults in Voyager, because Voyager will automatically cardinally correct your altitude for the altitude you're at going in the direction you're headed, and it will pick the best wind optimized altitude to get you there the quickest. So that 7,000 default will be ignored if you use the wind optimizer. And I'll show you how to do that in the next screen. Now you can select from a VFR flight or an IFR flight, depending on what kind of flight you want to take. And of course it'll show you the appropriate charts. If you pick IFR, you'll see a low en route, and you'll have your approach plates, so you can easily switch charts at any time once we've created the flight plan. But this will put your flight plan over the proper chart. You see the box down here for look for preferred routes. If you fly IFR and you want to get preferred routes, because that's what you'll probably be given by ARTCC anyway, then you can do that. Over here you can go ahead and select from your plane, and I'm going to go ahead and switch from the Cessna 172. I'm going to come up here to my Beach Bonanza. Say I'm not flying the 172 today. I'm going to fly the Beach Bonanza, and you notice that the cruise speed of 166 knots, true airspeed, and the fuel capacity, everything is automatically changed over to that aircraft. If you do click on the aircraft button, and when you first install Voyager, of course, it'll tell you to pick what aircraft you want to fly. We have over 160 different aircraft, very common aircraft, that have the entire POH, weight and balance, everything you might need built in. So that's really convenient. You can also share those with your friends or with us through the upload, download button here at the bottom. So we'll close that. Now that we've selected everything we want for this flight, I'm going to show you one really fun feature. See this little thing looks like a calculator down at the end of the fuel in gallons. My Bonanza, of course, takes 74 gallons. I can click on that little calculator button. Oh, now it's popping up and saying there's lots of Renos in the ICAO database. Which one do you want? Oh, that's the one I want. I say OK. Now it pops up and says this is the calculator button I just clicked on, pulls up the fuel and payload calculator, and it says that I've got 74 gallons. Well, let's say that I'm taking 4 200-pound guys today. I can just swipe the payload, and I can say that I'm taking 800 pounds, and by just entering that, it automatically shows me in the max fuel that I can't fill more than 58.3 before I take off if I want to stay in weight and balance. So that's kind of handy to be able to do. And of course it will presume that if you have 800 pounds in payload, those 4 guys I'm taking with me today on the way to Reno, that every time I stop for fuel, I'm going to not be able to fill up more than that 58.3 gallons. So it'll stop you that much more, shorter distances, because it knows that to stay in weight and balance, you can't fill all the way to the 74 gallons. So I'll say OK. We see the 58.3 in the fuel column there. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. Now you can put in a string of all your own idents. And of course, most of the iPad apps out there these days require you to actually type in a bunch of string of idents, kind of know what your path's going to be. Well, that's silly, because Voyager will automatically pick the path with all the waypoints that will get you there the quickest. So that powerful cloud-based auto router that Voyager uses will pick the best flight. But you, of course, can say skip using the auto router and plan it yourself if you want to. So I'm going with the auto router, and you get 3 different router methods to choose from. You can go GPS Direct, you can go on Victor Airways. I'm going to go Victor Airways. And of course, in a Bonanza, I can't get above 18, so I want Victor Low Altitude. And you can choose between whether you want to get there best time or best economy. Some days, like on the weekends, you might say, boy, you know, I'm burning fuel out of my own wallet here, and I've got all the time in the world on the weekend, but I don't want to spend very much money. So you might take a route that takes more time but burns less fuel. Or you might want to just get there as quickly as possible regardless of how much fuel you would burn. So you get to choose. I'm going to say I want best time. And you can also say I want one altitude all the way to Reno, the one that's the best for me today. So I can just go find that cruise altitude, put on the autopilot, and not have to change. I am always willing to vary my altitude by leg because Voyager's powerful cloud-based auto router called WebPlan will automatically altitude pick the best altitude for your tailwinds for each leg of your flight. So choosing this option will give me a flight plan that's probably got more waypoints, and it will recommend that I maybe go up to 9,500 feet, fly along there for a while. When I get over some mountains and the winds are higher, it'll tell me to go up to maybe 12.5 or 13.5, and I'll get there more quickly because there's stronger tailwinds at that altitude. So I'm going to pick the wind optimization type I want. Now in my plane, I could come down here for your max altitude, and I could say, well, my plane will go to 18,000, but I don't have oxygen today, so I only want 12,000 feet, and the auto router will not ever route you over 12,000 feet for this particular flight. Now, because of where I know we're going, Reno, we're going to get a much better flight plan path and not have to weave up valleys and stuff like that to get our terrain clearance of 2,000 feet. That's also the FAR regulation terrain clearances are all built into Voyager as well. So I'm going to put it at the higher altitude to go up to as high as my plane can get so that I can make it as short a trip duration as I can. Now here you can say you want Voyager to automatically add fuel stops, and if so, it will go ahead and it'll restore the tanks to the original takeoff level, presuming with those 4 people that you're not getting rid of any of your payload, and every time you stop, you can only fill up to that 58 gallons. So here's your options, and you can also pick, you want the FAA applicable minimums, or you can say you want to set your own safety margin, like never, always stop me for fuel when I get to an hour left or an hour and a half left, instead of the not very conservative minimums the FAA says of 30 minutes for VFR and 45 for IFR. So now when you use Voyager, you're not going to probably change these very often. You're going to know how you like to fly. You're going to set them once, and then you'll never have to deal with this again if you don't want to. So I'm taking a lot of time right now, but creating a flight plan doesn't take very long unless you're demonstrating to someone all of the features of the product like I am. Now I want to, on this VFR flight over here on the right-hand side, you see where it says avoid, things to avoid. I can avoid like water. I can stay out of, and I've checked, I would like to stay out of Class B, so route me under or around Class B, keep me out of any hot MOAs, prohibited and restricted in TFRs. So now I go ahead and say next. We get a little map, and it shows the GPS direct Great Circle line in yellow, and then Voyager picks the best wind and fuel price optimized route to get us there as quickly as possible. And it says here that we avoided TFRs, we optimized for winds aloft, so we're always going to be flying at the altitude for each leg that's the most ideal up to the service ceiling of our aircraft. It did need to add a fuel stop before we got there because with 4 guys I had to take off with less than full fuel. So it picked a stop, and it looked at those live fuel prices, and based on those fuel prices, it picked a airport where I'm going to save, looks like $21 over filling up on an airport that's a little bit more direct on our line of path. And it also does take, if it recommends stopping in an airport that isn't direct line from where you're going, it does include the fuel burn to get over there and land, fly the pattern and land, and take off and get back on your path. So it's a net number. It'll save you 21 bucks even after going out of your way. Alrighty. So we can look on our map here and see all the different waypoints that are created, but I'm going to click next, and it takes us to the weight and balance window. Now you can just say next and skip past this if you want to, but because I said I was going to have 4 people, I'm going to go ahead and add people right here in the weight and balance. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to take Tom along. Tom's 200 pounds. I'm going to take in the middle seat. I'm going to say I'm taking Jeff, and he's 200 pounds. And then in the other middle seat, I'm going to take Nick, and he's 200 pounds. And I'm actually 170, so I'm going to leave me at 170. Now let's say that I'm not 170. Let's say that I'm 300. As I type that in, we can see, weight and balance out of range. You can see on the right-hand side the live weight and balance envelope, and we see that our landing little dot there is outside of our weight and balance envelope. So you can go ahead and scroll down. You can say, well, instead of 58 gallons, if I was 300 pounds, I'd have to maybe only take off with 40 gallons. Oh, that puts me back in weight and balance. So you can either move your passengers around or leave some more fuel behind, whatever you might want to do. Here it checks for warnings, and it tells us, ooh, you're kind of close to terrain. The FAR regulations recommend 2,000 feet above mountains, and you're going to be about 1,000 feet above mountains based on your climb profile with the amount of weight we have. Part of the flight is at night, so it's reminding us to be night current. And it's saying that in one place in Voyager I type 4 different people, but in the FAA flight plan I have not coordinated that with my weight and balance table, so we can fix that. That's great. Alrighty, so we say okay, and we're now out of the wizard, and it pulls up something that you FlightSoft users should probably think looks fairly familiar, because Voyager is kind of modeled after FlightSoft, with having the your chart and your flight plan path in the upper right-hand side. It has the profile over terrain here down in the lower right-hand side. It has the nav log in the upper left-hand corner and a little summary in the lower left-hand corner of your flight, so you can confirm and make sure at any time that it's the right pilot, the right aircraft. So here on the nav log on the left, I'm going to go ahead and expand this out. It's not showing us very much information right now. Somebody just asked a question too. Can Voyager route or fly if you're in offline mode? And yes, Voyager has the full-blown Voyager auto router built into the application, so you can do wind-optimized auto routing whether you're connected to the internet or whether you're not. So if you put Voyager onto a tablet or a laptop and you're either sitting in FBO with no internet, or whether you're in the cockpit flying along, you can do the full wind-optimized auto routing anytime. All right, so here on the nav log, over in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to go ahead and select this button. You see the double-headed arrow? That will roll the map off so that we can see more of the nav log. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on that double-headed arrow, and the map rolls off to the right, and now I can see lots of great information about our flight. I see the altitude of each leg, and remember how we said we're willing to go up and down to chase the best tailwind altitude? Well, we're going to have to do a little up and down. We're going to go from 9,500 feet all the way up to 15,500 to be able to get there the least duration or the shortest amount of time possible. It looks at our wind direction, wind speed, true airspeed, magnetic heading, Now I notice that there's one column not here that I really like. So I come up here to the Customize Navlog button and I say, I really want to have a ground speed column. And maybe I want cumulative time and distance. And maybe I even want course detail. So when I click OK, now I've got even more information. And I can see right here the new column that I've added, where we now have our ground speed in addition to our true airspeed for every leg of the flight. I can see why it's sending us up to some of these altitudes. Man, look at that, 192 knot ground speed. Awesome. True course, true heading, magnetic course, magnetic heading, everything you might want to see. So you can totally customize that. And of course, you can print that. So we'll go ahead and roll that back now. And we've kind of shrunken up that nav log. And here on the right, let's go ahead and I'm going to click and drag to the middle of my screen. Now, if we look down below, we can go ahead and see our vertical profile. This shows us taking off, staying really low. You see how that number 2 waypoint down here, let me go grab that red spotlight again. See how waypoint number 2 right here, it's keeping me right underneath the Class B lid, and it keeps me down low until I get out from under it because I told the auto router I wanted to stay out, always stay out of Class B. Then it has me climbing up, and you see how even though I went on Victor Airways, most flight planners all put you at the MEA on Victor Airways, but not Voyager. It sees that you're going to get there 20 minutes faster if you pick an altitude that is above, because you have tailwinds with you. If you fly higher than these MEAs, and that's what this black line is, this is the MEA of a Victor Airway. And I think if I put my cursor right over it, maybe with GoToWebinar I can't get it to pop up. I'm not seeing it. Usually if you put your mouse right over the black line, it'll pop up, it'll say Victor 167, and it'll have the MEA. So these black lines along the profile are the MEA, but we can see that Voyager put us at a route that's quite a bit higher, 2,000 to 3,000 feet above the MEAs to get us there more quickly. These little white dashed lines and solid dashed lines are cloud layers, and if you put your mouse over one of them, it'll say scattered layer at 9,500 feet, broken layer at 10.5, overcast layer at 12.5, etc. And you can also see here with the yellow profile that we're clearing terrain, obviously, the whole way, no problem. Now, let's go back up to our main chart. Now, we're looking at what we call a digital sectional chart. Whoop. I clicked on an airport. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom down in again. And as I zoom in, I can see that I'm getting more and more information. So this is actually a digital sectional. And if I go to the chart button down at the bottom left-hand corner of Voyager, then I can say, well, I want to switch to a different chart type. I don't want a digitally drawn or what we call a vector sectional. I want a piece of paper, the thing that I know and love and have always flown with. And there we go. Now our flight plan line is right over that paper, or what we call raster-based sectional chart. And of course, you can still zoom in and out. One of the really cool things about Voyager is you can add anything, you can draw digital elements over the top of the paper charts too. So I can come down here and click on weather and say overlay my weather on this chart. Now you see how I've got those green VFR weather depiction circles, and I have winds aloft arrows, and I have other things. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to where we were and say hide the weather. So that all we're looking at is just the sectional chart. But you can go ahead and turn on digital obstacles or NextRad radar and lay anything on top of any chart that you might want to view. And of course I can also then say, yeah, I want the scanned low and route chart, and scroll out there, and there I see my low and route chart. And if I wanted to, I could hit the command button and say turn on obstacles. Then I can zoom in and look, you see digitally drawn obstacles, and I've selected to not show the altitudes of the obstacles. You can also turn the altitudes on, but you get the idea of how you can select virtually anything. Now, what I did is that lower left-hand corner, see the command button, CMD? When you hit that, it turns on this toolbar, allows you to draw roads, rivers, nav aids, terrain. You can even turn on terrain, mountains and stuff, you know, underneath the chart that doesn't have them on it. So this is, and then you can also turn on your different weather elements individually if you want to. But we don't usually show that to you because it just don't want to, you know, make it too confusing or too busy. All right, so I'm going to go back to that scan sectional chart, and we'll zoom out a little bit here. And what else might I want to do? I've done my flight planning. Oh, I can also rubber band my flight plan line if I want to. I can just put my cursor right over the purple flight plan line and say, well, instead of flying so close to Seattle Class B airspace, I want to go out over here and fly over Lake Sammamish because, you know, I can use it as pilotage and dead reckoning. So I'm going to fly out over there. I drag the purple line out. It changes and creates the waypoint in the nav log automatically and changes the duration of my flight. So I can always look down here in the bottom and see the duration of my flight is, 3 hours and 39 minutes. Fuel used, and as I rubber band my flight plan line around, it'll automatically change to show me how that changes things. Okay, now I can also, of course, file the flight plan. Just go to the FAA button here. It'll pull up a default flight plan, and I can go ahead and just hit the file via the internet, and then I can fill out either an FAA or an ICAO. You see how it's filled it all out for me, and then I just say file it through the internet, and it shows me what it shows me whether it was accepted, whether this flight plan was accepted or not. So get the full weather briefing, etc. So we talked about all that. Okay, I think we've pretty much covered Smart Plan, which is the flight planning part of Voyager. Now I'm going to go ahead and come up here, and I want to save the flight plan I've created, so I say save. It says warning about a few different things, and I go ahead and say OK. Now that that's saved, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch. Oop, I bumped the chart again. I'm going to come up here to the top, and there's this little button called Switch to Glass View, which is the moving map mode. If you see this little aircraft with a black curved arc over it right next to the XM weather button, and Voyager, of course, supports XM in or out of the cockpit if you've got an XM receiver. I'm going to go ahead and click on Glass View. And now it'll go ahead and switch us into what we call the glass view mode. I'm going to go up to Tools, and I'm going to say Start the Simulator so that we can actually see what it would look like if we were flying in the cockpit. So let's go ahead and zoom in. Here we are over that sectional chart in the left-hand window, and this is showing that we're taking off, and we can, let me go grab that. Let me go grab the red spotlight. Now this is the glass view module, the moving map part of the product. It's the equivalent of Vista for FlightSoft, folks, but it's not a separate application. It's integrated with the flight planner. So with Voyager, you buy the Voyager flight software, and you can purchase or activate any particular of the 5 modules that you want, depending on what your needs are. So here we're flying. We can see up here across the top all of our GPS information. So I can see that my ground speed right now is about 180 knots. And I'm climbing, or actually no, I'm not climbing. It took me up to 1,000 feet, and it's keeping me low. Remember that vertical profile? It's keeping me low underneath the Class B airspace, the SeaTac airspace. So once we get out from under that, we'll climb up again, but it's going to keep us low for now. Shows our next waypoint was just that waypoint I rubber banded to, and shows us our bearing and waypoints, things like that. If you want to turn different things on the chart, they're now all right here across the top, so you can add obstacles to a low and route chart, which doesn't have obstacles, or roads, which is not on an IFR chart, to a low IFR and route chart if you wanted to. So intermix raster-based charts with digital elements if you want to. Now over on the right-hand side as we're flying along, it's always showing you, because we're on the Airports tab, you see how it says Nearest right here? This tab is we're on Nearest, and we have airport selected, so it shows us our nearest airport, and it shows us the live fuel price. 100 low lead is only $5.77 at Payne Field right now, and if you want more information, you can click on this. It's showing you the longest runway at this airport is 9,000 feet. It's Class D, and the green ball shows you that it's VFR right now. You can scroll down this list if you want to. Let me go back to my arrow. All right, so I can scroll down this list to another airport if I want more information. Like, let's say I want to see what's going on at, SeaTac. I click on it. It'll immediately take me to more information on that airport. Here's SeaTac, and SeaTac is actually marginal VFR conditions right now. The fuel prices here, you see this line, $7.66, a heck of a lot more than my home airport. Shows me that's 12-knot winds at the surface over the runway, and you can, of course, get rid of that if you want to. Now we also have the FAA diagrams built in, so you can click on the FAA diagram, and they're georeferenced. You can see your plane taxiing on the taxiway if you want to. Or we can go to the flight guide diagrams. Oh, we don't have a flight guide subscription signed up on this computer right now, but we have the 5,000 georeferenced flight guide diagrams built in. that you can add and view if you want to. The FAA only creates airport diagrams for about 700 airports. Flight Guide does 5,000. If we want to go look at an approach, we can go click on an approach, go to a particular, like an ILS, and it pops it up. And these are georeferenced, of course. We'll see our plane right here on the, and there it is. There's our blue aircraft flying across our georeferenced approach plate. Now, you can also switch the layout of the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and switch right now to 2 split screens side by side. That will give us the ability to display any 2 types of charts side by side. So I can come over and on this left window I can say I want this to be a scanned low and route chart if I want. And I'll go ahead and change my range out to maybe 25 nautical miles. And then this one, maybe I want to keep closer. My sectional on the right-hand side, maybe I want to keep maybe at a 5 nautical mile range. And we can see that we've got live fuel prices available at an airport we're coming up to there on the left. I'm going to go ahead and in this right-hand window, I'm going to hit the 3D button down at the bottom. See that little 3D button? And if I click on that, I'm now looking at the synthetic vision view in my right-hand window. We can see my purple highway in the sky, what we call HITS highway in the sky boxes, HITS boxes. And we see that red square ahead of us. We're headed right now for our first waypoint. So it's out ahead of us, and we can see by the positioning of the purple boxes that we're right on our purple flight plan line. And on the left window, we can see we're getting very close to that waypoint. So we're headed, we're doing just right there. Once we hit that, you see how on the left-hand side we're going to head off maybe 30 degrees to the right to go to our next waypoint, which is Blaco. If we look in the 3D window, we see the purple highway in the sky boxes, and once we hit this red box, which is our waypoint, we then go off to the right to go to Blaco, over the top of this little ridge, and then we're going to climb up when we get out from under the Class B airspace. So anyway, that's a little bit about Glassview, the moving map part of the product. Hope that's been helpful. There's a lot of power and a lot of features here. I was taking a lot of time to show you a lot of features, so a lot of people after these webinars will end up talking to us going, oh my gosh, I can never remember all this. The product's too complicated. There's too many features. I'll never use them all. And one of the things that we think is good about Voyager is it's a little bit like Microsoft Word. They say the average person only uses 5% of the power of Word, but that doesn't keep them from just opening a new document and typing. Well, with Voyager, you can do the simple stuff. You never have to get into this complex stuff if you don't want to. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and look at the questions now and see if there are any questions that we might be able to have people ask. I'm going to go into the attendees view, and if you have a question that you'd like to have addressed, you'd like to ask of the entire group, go ahead and raise your hand, and you need to go to the GoToWebinar control panel, go and find your name, and then go ahead and scroll or hit the little hand column if you would like to ask a question. If you, it looks like we got somebody there who'd like to ask a question. So hang on here. Ron said he'd like to ask a question. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Ron. Hey Ron, can you speak?
You may not have his audio on.
All right, I've unmuted Ron, but I can't hear Ron right now. So Ron may not have a microphone. He might have be on speakers but not have microphone. So we'll go ahead and go to see if there's anyone else who has their hand up. Don't see any other hands right now, but let's go to someone who's got a question. All right, so all right, let's see. Somebody is asking, can Voyager generate preferred FAA routes for flight planning? And the question is absolutely. In the Flight Planning Wizard, there's a little box that says use the preferred FAA routes for this flight plan if one is available, and it'll go ahead and it'll go ahead and generate a FAA preferred route for flight planning. All right, let's go see if we've got any more questions here. All right, any plans? Oh, somebody's asking, are there any plans to expand the aircraft profiles to more high-end aircraft like Citation or Learjet or corporate aircraft? We actually have an MD-80, something like 60, 70 passenger aircraft, twin-engine jet. So you can make aircraft profiles absolutely as complex and as advanced as you'd like. You can model for multiple temperatures, multiple weights. You can import information out of a POH or from a spreadsheet into Voyager and create very advanced jet performance profiles. Also, of course, you can just switch over to Jet A for fuel, or you can switch to pounds instead of gallons. So Voyager works very well for high performance aircraft. Let's see here.
They asked about a help menu. Keep going.
Oh, somebody I guess asked about is there an instruction manual available for Voyager? That's a very good question. And yes, absolutely. All you need to do is if you come up to the Help drop-down menu, you can see Download the User's Guide as one of your options. And there's a couple hundred-page user guide that you can download onto the desktop of any computer you'd like to as a PDF, and then you can sit there and when you're sitting in an airport on your laptop, you can flip through the PDF and look at the manual. It's context sensitive, so that if you type in help in Voyager, you hit F1 and you type in something, let's say about, hits boxes. It'll take you right to the right page in the user's guide that talks all about those highway in the sky boxes. So context-sensitive help and a very comprehensive user's guide for Voyager. Let's go see who else might have questions. Whoops, daisy. I accidentally tried to scroll the chart, it looks like, which you can't do while you're flying unless you want to disengage from the GPS. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to go here. Let's see. Here's a good one. Someone says that they would like to output the waypoints, the wind-optimized waypoints from Voyager, and Voyager actually will create a wind and a fuel price optimized route. And you can actually export from Voyager out to either your Garmin handheld or even your Garmin 430 or 530. So let me show you how you do that. We just go up to the, we go up to this little button which is Send to Device or Application. And when we do that, it says, what would you like to send your wind-optimized flight plan to? Would you like to send it out to Anywhere Map, out to the Bendix King Handheld Aviator Ace, a Garmin GPS handheld like the 496 or something? Do you want a panel mount like the Garmin 430, 530? You just click here. You can export your wind-optimized flight plan out to Google Earth, Flight Simulator, WingX, or our universal format, which works with a whole bunch of other things. So yes, you can go ahead and use Voyager with, you can take advantage of that wind-optimized auto router and then send it to something else. Somebody's asking whether we're recording this, and yes, we are. We're recording these webinars, all of them this week. All 12 of them will be recorded, and we'll pop them up onto YouTube and have a link to them so that you can view them again if you'd like to, and also access them from our website. That's a great question. Let's see, answer another one here. That one we got already. Let me see what else we might have. Here's somebody with a question. Somebody's saying that they're having trouble figuring out how to get into one of the modules. Please give our tech support folks a call, or email support@seattleavionics.com. We're happy to help you with any specific issues or things with the product. Let's see. Let me make sure I got this question. Got that one. Let's see. I currently have a WeatherWorks subscription. And yes, if you have an XM receiver, you can go ahead, whether it's a Bluetooth or USB, you can go ahead and plug it into a laptop or tablet Windows computer, and you can use it with Voyager. Your XM subscription transfers over, and there's no cost to you. It works great. Someone's saying that they have a Garmin 496 XM receiver, and unfortunately, if you got one of the Garmin ones, not a generic XM receiver that works with any laptop or tablet, but the Garmin-specific ones, those are proprietary. Garmin doesn't like to play in the sandbox with other people, and so unfortunately, there's no way to connect your Garmin XM receiver to any tablet or laptop. It only connects to a Garmin device. So sorry about that. Somebody's asking about FlyQ versus Voyager. FlyQ is our iPad version of Voyager. We completely rewrote Voyager for the iPad with a totally different touchscreen interface. So with FlyQ EFB, you'll end up getting almost a nearly identical feature set to Voyager for Windows, but it's really in a format that was designed from the ground up for a touchscreen tablet like the iPad. So we call FlyQ Voyager for the iPad because it's got the same features, but it definitely looks and works completely different and is more intuitive if all you're using it on is a touchscreen device like an iPad or a tablet. Whereas Voyager was originally created 11 years ago now, specifically for a desktop Windows PC where you had a mouse in your hand and you could be selecting drop-down menus and stuff like Windows has. But if you're looking for the same features, something else really worth mentioning is that our web sync feature, if you do have any of the FlyQ products from AOPA and you use Voyager for Windows, you can click the web sync button and it will share your flight plans across all of your different devices. So if you have FlyQ on an Android phone or an iPhone and your iPad and Voyager on a laptop or a desktop or even a new Windows Surface, then you can go ahead and keep all of your flight plans, all of your aircrafts in sync across all the different devices you use, even if they're all different operating systems. So that's something that's a real neat benefit, and part of the reason why AOPA wanted to team with Seattle Avionics with the line of products called FlyQ with AOPA is because of that great, powerful web sync feature that we have, in addition to Voyager's award-winning auto router. Well, let me take one last peek for questions that we maybe didn't get to. I want to thank everyone very much for coming and joining us today. We have lots more of these scheduled for this week, and we're going to continue doing them on a regular basis. We will be recording them, so if you can't make one of these times conveniently, you can still go back and look at them. And let's see, any last questions? Somebody's asking whether the export-import from FlightSoft is covered in the user manual. Yes, it is, but you can also, of course, just give us a call or shoot an email to support@seattleavionics.com. Well, we really appreciate your time today. We certainly hope that. Here's a good one. Anyway, I was going to say thank you very much for taking your valuable time and joining us today. I certainly hope that it was valuable. I'm going to answer a couple more questions, but I just wanted to tell the people who are leaving, thank you very much for joining us. Feel free, if you have any feedback on the webinars, to email webinar@seattleavionics.com, or of course, you can always email info@seattleavionics.com, support@seattleavionics.com, anything along those lines. Somebody's asking about a good kneeboard tablet-sized computer to use with Voyager. We're working right now. We've just shipped the Windows 8.1 capable version of Voyager and put it up on our site and made it publicly available. So we've been looking at a new tablet-sized computer that would be ideal for Voyager, and we're looking at two right now. We've got the Dell Venue. Is a it's the size of an iPad mini, and it's pretty inexpensive, only a few $100s, and it's not a super powerful computer, but for glass view in the cockpit, it works totally fine for glass view. The screen's a little small because it's only 7-inch, a little bit small for the full-blown flight planning, but of course with WebSync, you can do your flight planning on a desktop or laptop computer, push the WebSync button, and that wind-optimized flight plan that you created or rubber banded around on your laptop or desktop will show up on your tablet. So very easy to just, with a single click of a button, you can push that flight plan out to a tablet-sized device. Another one that's good, if you want to actually just have you don't want to carry a tablet, like an iPad mini-sized tablet, and a laptop, then the new Microsoft Surface Pro 2 that has come out is a really powerful machine. You can get up to 8 gigs of RAM in the thing and a huge solid-state hard drive, and so that's actually a great machine as well. I would say that in the next week or two, I think we're going to have a couple of these available on our website, so I wouldn't rush out and snag an ideal machine to work with Voyager, because we are going to have a couple new what we call Voyager SkyPads, which will have Voyager and all the charts, of course, preloaded onto the tablet, mailed directly to your house, all ready to go and fly with. It'll be paired with a little portable WAS Bluetooth GPS, so you can get an electronic flight bag, all totally ready to go with the new Windows 8.1 version of Voyager for Windows on it. We also have our Black Friday special coming up next week, the Friday after Thanksgiving. And so I'd sure recommend signing up to get our emails. You can go to Twitter or go to our website and sign up to get advance notice. Every year we have some just really screaming deals, half off or even better, but they're quantity limited. So usually just the first 100 people. So you need to make sure that you click on that email and jump on them when you see them next Friday if you're interested in that. And we think we will have a couple of the new SkyPads included in that Black Friday special. So if you're looking for a good complete Windows-based EFB solution. All right. Let's see if there's anyone else we didn't get to. Couple people saying thank you. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Yeah. All righty. Looking for any last questions that didn't get answered. Somebody is actually saying thank you again, everyone who's being so nice and saying thanks, that they really enjoyed it and things. I sure appreciate that. Have a great day. Somebody's saying that they're interested in AOPA FlyQ, but for Windows. Well, Voyager for Windows really is the same feature set of a product as AOPA FlyQ. FlyQ is just the iPad name of the version of Voyager we've made for AOPA that runs on the iPad. So the Voyager that we're doing the webinar on today really kind of is, is the equivalent of FlyQ, not on an iPad, if you will. And again, if that's confusing, go ahead and give us a call or shoot us an email, and we're happy to talk more about it. Let's see what else we might have here. It looks to me like we've got them all. Well, maybe, yeah, I think. This is a good one. Somebody's asking if Voyager is a replacement for ForeFlight. Well, ForeFlight does not have a Windows version. ForeFlight is only an iPad application. And so AOPA FlyQ would be a replacement for ForeFlight. It does everything that ForeFlight does and even more. ForeFlight does not have split screen views, does not have synthetic vision, does not have the wind optimized auto routing, and all those features are in AOPA's FlyQ products. So if you're an AOPA member, you can go to their site, go to aopa.org, and there you'll see FlyQ buttons all over the place. Take a look, download it, but that's of course just for the iPad. ForeFlight doesn't have a Windows version. So Voyager, you know, on a Windows, if you want a Windows tablet, like this new little Dell Venue or a Microsoft Surface, then Voyager would be a replacement for that. It has flight planning, weather, moving map, synthetic vision, all the things we showed you today. Let's see what else. Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate it. We've run over a little bit here, but I'll see you again on Thursday, I believe, and we've got many more webinars coming up this week. So thanks for your time and attention, and let us know how else we can help make you a safer or happier pilot. And fly safe in the meantime. Bye-bye. John Rudder, over now.